Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode of Right Here, Right Queer. Today, I'm your host, Luna Day, and I am joined by Tess Carletta.
Hi.
And Noah Hawthorne.
Hello.
And in this episode, we are going to be discussing friends to lovers. So to get us started, what is the trope, friends to lovers?
I feel like it's in the name.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Like, it's a story where the main couple of a romance book first gets their start as friends before eventually ascending to the status of lovers.
My question is, do they have to be friends already when the book starts, or do they become friends?
Either, probably. I've read both. I've encountered both. I think sometimes we like to see them meet cute still, even if they are going to start as friends, even if it's not like a super romantic meet cute. So then we do get the meeting a little bit at the start, but then I also think it works just as fine if we start chapter 1 and the author's like, they are best friends.
The bestest.
The bestest of friends.
Yeah, I completely agree with you both. I literally have nothing to add to that. It's pretty self-explanatory, I feel. So with that being said then, what is the draw of this trope? Why do we love it and what makes it successful?
I feel like there's a lot less stress, at least in the beginning. Well, I don't know. That can't always be true because there's a lot of anxiety on shifting from friends to something more. But I feel like it kind of can lend to a cozier, more wholesome kind of vibe. And I feel like for it to be successful, it can't just immediately launch from one phase to another. Because I feel like, on one hand, it's easier to become involved with someone that's your friend, but on the other hand, it's also like kind of a lot because you see them as one way and then that changes.
The stakes are higher.
Yeah, it can make for awkward times.
I think from someone who's demi-romantic and demisexual, sometimes have a hard time with romances when they don't have a pre-established friendship before they get together. So for me, I really like to see that development because it makes it more real for me because that's closer to what my own experience is. And I also feel like, and probably like allosexual people maybe feel this way, I'm not sure, but I hear all the time like, oh, my spouse, my partner is my best friend. And time again, I've heard that's the best way to have a partner is to have someone who is literally your person, your best friend in the whole world. And I think it just suggests that there's a deeper level of understanding. When someone's your friend and they love you like that, it's because they know you so intimately, inside and out. And it makes the love feel much more profound that way than if it's just kind of like insta-love. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've enjoyed many stories with insta-love, but I do think that when you start as friends, there's an implication that, wow, this is so much more deep.
I really like that. And yeah, I think, like, I feel like partners do tend to be best friends in the best sort of ways. And, like, to add to that, I think one of the things that I quite like is normally, or like quite often in these stories, one person starts to catch the feels first. And you have a period of sort of pining and that unrequited love where they're sort of like, I don't want to ruin this friendship by admitting my feelings. And that just gives some really delicious tension to the story because they're really unsure about whether or not to kind of admit to it because it might damage the relationship if the feelings aren't reciprocated. And I think that is quite an interesting angle to read a romance from.
I agree.
And what do we think it needs to have to make it successful then?
I think the friendship has to be convincing. Just like any love story has to be convincing, we have to believe that the two characters love each other. I think the friendship has to be convincing. Sometimes I read friendships in books, and maybe not necessarily with this specific tropes, but just general friendships, where the friends are bad friends, or they don't know each other very well. And it's true that there's different types of friendships, but if the friendship is already off to a rocky foundation, like if I can't believe that they're friends, then how am I going to believe that that relationship is going to grow into something romantic?
Yeah.
That's fair.
And also, like, we've been friends for like a day. Now, that's also kind of, it has to be a more established kind of a friendship.
And I want to see these friends in different types of situations too. I want to see them hanging out. I want the slice of life. I want the friends going through the conflict. I need to believe that they are friends. And if I can't believe that, then like I said, it doesn't work.
That's valid.
What do you think, Luna? What makes it successful for you?
I agree with you guys. I think that it needs to be a really well established friendship, and that, like you said, no, I think it can't just be, oh, we've been friends for a whole day and now we're moving into the sort of romance side of things. It needs to have a bit more depth to it. But yeah.
I think a lot of times in these books too, we get more of the friendship portion. Like it's equal parts sometimes developing the friendship and then falling in love. And sometimes it's more developing the friendship and then it sort of blossoms very easily into love. But I think that's the best part, is just knowing that something can very naturally kind of transition when it's already got a solid base. But reading about the friendship is one of my favorite parts as someone who's demi, so.
Need the correct ratio.
What is it? 2 parts friendship, 1 part romance?
Yeah.
Is there a really specific formula, is there?
It's scientific, okay?
It is.
I love that. Okay, so we've established what it needs to be successful, but alternatively, how can it go wrong in this trope? What could be involved with this trope where we'd go, nope, that's not how we want to see it?
Well, I think like Tess said, like if it's not a convincing friendship and if they're just straight up bad friends, or if it's like if you're only friends for a couple of days or it's not like a super established, to me that's not really a friends to lovers kind of scenario. That's just like a regular developing romance, I guess. And I feel like too, like it does blossom naturally, but you're not going to go from being friends one day to like moving in together the next day. Like, I don't know. I just feel like there has to be a natural progression. And it's just not like, bam, okay, we're 100% in this now. Like, just because you were friends doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen like that.
Right. So I have a question, a hypocritical hot take. I don't know what to call it. But like my heart says that insta-love has no place in friends to lovers because they have to be friends before they can be attracted to each other. But I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Oh.
And the reason I say it's hypocritical is because in Kit and Basie, which is my debut book, the characters, when they first kind of see each other, there's a little bit of like an intuition feeling of this person is going to be important in my life. And as someone who's very like intuition driven, I have had those feelings about people with no basis. I had that feeling about Carolina Cruz when I first met them. But the rest of the book is them becoming friends basically and establishing a friendship and then kind of feeling the underlying attraction and sort of giving into that towards the end. Like, when my mom read the book, she was like, I just love that they're such good friends, and that's how they fall in love. And I was like, I guess you're right. But then people in, like, the reviews and talking to me were like, it's really insta-love, Tessa. And I'm like, how is it both? Can it be both? I don't know.
I feel like it can be, and one of the examples I'm going to give later includes this. And in that example, there was a pre-existing friendship, and then for plot reasons, they spent a portion of time apart. And then when they reunited as friends, there were differences, and that attraction kind of sparked instantly when they reunited. So I think that's another example of it being friends to then kind of insta-love. I think it can work, done in the right way.
Well, I think sometimes there's just moments where you just realize like how important somebody is to you. Or like you said, Tess, like just this person is really, really matters to me. I don't really know why. And at first it kind of is like, oh, I really appreciate them and in their friendship. But then there's just probably a moment where it probably does feel or seem like insta-love. But it's just that realization that it's not just friendship. And I don't know if I would call that insta-love. Maybe it's insta-realization.
I also think you could probably, I don't know if it's feel attraction. I'm demi, so I'm like, is this how it works? But like, you recognize that your friends are attractive people. And maybe there is like a little trickle of attraction throughout your friendship. And then I feel like that's probably perfectly normal for many people. But I think for this trope specifically, the friendship has to take the forefront.
Agreed.
But I also think that sometimes authors don't write this trope with it in mind. It just sort of happens naturally. Like, when I wrote Kit and Basie, I didn't say, like, I'm going to write a friends to lovers novel. Like, that's just kind of the way that it was. So, I don't know what there is to say about that. Except, yeah.
Okay, so what are some examples that we have of friends to lovers books that we have enjoyed?
Okay, I've been staring at my bookshelf and trying to figure it out. I feel like Lore and Lust by Carla Nicole, the first book specifically is what I'm thinking, is a very good example of them just like being friends. And one of them is just kind of really oblivious that maybe they're like really close for how friends normally are, and friends aren't really normally like this kind of a vibe. And as one of them falls first. And I really love it for that, and it's very sweet and wholesome and slow. And I feel like it's everything a friends to lovers romance should be. And then, Tess, I think you've read this one, but Two Rogues Make a Right by Cat Sebastian.
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
Yeah, they're like separated friends. Like they haven't seen each other in a while, and then they reconnect, and it's like a hurt comfort. One is nursing the other one back to health, and they're friends for most of it. And there's, the inside jokes. So, like, Laura and Lester becoming friends, and they're friends for a while. And then this other one is they were friends, have been friends. So it's just two kind of different versions of that, where I think it's really well done.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that one, but you're definitely right that that is a friends to lover situation. From a classic standpoint, I'm saying it every time there's a book to recommend. Anne of Green Gables, okay? It's a tiny little bit enemies to lovers because she hates his guts at first, but that's because she's like 10. But then once they become like teenagers, they spend a long time, Anne and her eventual husband Gilbert, who like they just spend a long time in each other's company, and they do become best friends to the point where people in town are like, why are you not falling in love? Why are you not getting married? And she has to come to the realization the hard way that she is in love with him, but I think it's because he's such a good friend that she has a hard time seeing it. This is not a book, but I'm going to say it anyway. Most of the fanfiction backlog for the Buck and Eddie tag on AO3 is friends to lovers. It's got such potential because they are such good friends. They have knit their lives together to the point where one character set it in his will so that the other character will take care of his son if anything happens to him while they're firefighting. And I think the reason why I gobble up, the thousands of fanfictions about them that I have is because it's always like the friendship is the foundation of their love story every single time. So even though it's not a friends to lovers situation in the show, in all these fanfictions, like it happens over and over and over, and it's such a believable story. And then to shout out some indie authors, Knight's Oath by Juliette Caruso. I remember liking that book because I was like, it feels like they're becoming friends before they fall in love. And it's true that there's a lot of underlying attraction when they are in their friendship, but the friendship is still the thing that draws them closest together, which I think is important. And then A Series of Rooms by A.J. Barlow. Trigger warning for abuse, but it's about a working sex worker who someone buys his time and they just spend the night talking in a hotel room. And they develop this friendship. The one will buy his time and they just spend the Fridays or whatever day of the week it is just talking and talking and talking, and they become really, really good friends. And because of the one character's past with abuse and being in sex work when it's not something he really wants to do, he has a lot of trauma and healing that he has to heal from before he can welcome in the other character romantically. So it makes their friendship all the more profound because it's all they can have for a really long time. It's such a beautiful, well-written story. So those are my recommendations.
I have one more I just remembered. All the Painted Stars by Emma Denny. I don't know why I didn't think of it, but they're like best friends, and one of the main characters, I did ask the author, is Demi, so she's like a situation of realizing that even really close friends aren't really as close as they are, and their friendship develops into something more later, after jousting and knighting and running away. Yes.
Love that.
I'm done now. Your turn, Luna.
Well, my only two recommendations on this are not queer, I'm afraid, but anyone who knows me in the bookish community knows that I am a massive Ruby Dixon fan, and there are two stories in her Ice Home series, which is a spin-off of Ice Planet Barbarians, where this trope takes place. And the first one is, I believe, Sam's Secret, and she's the older woman, and her love interest is sort of late teens when they meet, so she doesn't see him as a potential partner, and then they separate for a few years, and when they reunite, he's really matured, he's grown into adulthood, and then the attraction kicks in, and they're like, whoa, this is strange because we've been friends for so long, and now like this attraction's just kind of appeared out of nowhere. And I really like how that's handled. And the other one is Floor's Fiasco. And these two have been friends forever and are quite happy that way. They haven't experienced their mating bond. If anyone's read the books, they know what I'm talking about. And they're suddenly thrown into a bit of a dangerous situation, and that's when the mating bond kicks in and goes, haha, actually, you two are fated. And they have to kind of navigate that they were perfectly happy as friends, and now it's sort of ordained that they are to be lovers, and they have to navigate that. So I think those two stories are quite an interesting take on the friends to lover trope.
It sounds good. I want to read it immediately.
I mean, I will always recommend Ruby Dixon to anybody who will listen and anyone who will give her books a chance, because I'm just the biggest fan. But you all knew that already.
It's going on my TBR.
Yay! Okay, so we've got examples of other ones that we've enjoyed. Do we have any examples of friends to lovers in our own work?
Yes.
Yep.
Wow, sounds so forlorn.
It's just like, okay, go ahead. You first.
Okay, so for me, it is Matt's Daughter and Adrastus. That's the second book in the Levinas series, and I wrote that with the intention of it being friends to lovers. Quentin and Alokian are very good friends, and Quentin, I think, well, he's attracted to Alokian first, but Alokian is very much like not a very romantic person. He's not looking for anything like that, so he kind of hides his feelings. And then stuff and things happen, and Alokian's like, you mean a lot to me, and I don't really know what that means, but I don't want you to go anywhere, so just work with me here. That's the kind of vibe they got going on. And then The Voice of Wild Places, the main characters were childhood friends, and then they get separated for reasons and stuff, and then they reconnect as adults, and they are definitely not friends. Well, one of them's really super mad at the other. But then as they're forced to go on this trip together, they become friends again, and they're kind of navigating friendship as adults and as these new people they are now. And then towards later on in the book, that friendship kind of evolves to something more.
Awesome.
Excellent.
For me, I think most of the couples in all of my work are, until the end of time, going to be friends to lovers in one way or another. I mentioned Kent and Basie, which is a strange combination of insta-love and eventual friends to lovers, but a lot of the other couples that I've written have all been either growing into friendship or have already been friends. Like, as a group, we published an anthology together, and the main couple in that story is a pair of childhood friends. So, and that's because the main character is demi-romantic like I am. Another short story I'm working on has a demi-romantic main character, so it's going to be very friendship-based. I just think it happens naturally. So, in most of, like, the body of my work, you can find friends that will eventually kiss on the mouth.
Gold heart.
Yeah, no, I also think Gold Heart is a little funny because, like, it's friends to lovers, but for the main couple, the one is, like, instantly attracted to the other one, and the main character, his attraction for the other one unfolds a little bit more slowly than that. So, friends to lovers can come in all shapes and sizes if you only believe.
Respect is key.
Yes. Luna?
See, I struggled with this because I'm now thinking about what you two have said about the friendships need to be really established and friendship first rather than straight into the romance. But I think the only two of mine that come close are both in the Threya saga. And the first pairing is Comrade and Finola.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, Finola starts the story engaged to somebody else, so she's already sort of promised to another man.
The drama.
The drama. And her and Comrade meet, and he's so shy and he has no confidence. So he's just like, well, she's pretty, but she's never gonna want me. I've got no hope. But, you know, he's still there to sort of support her when she goes through some things. And then, you know, he's too sort of scared to sort of say anything about how he's starting to feel towards her. And it does start as a really sweet friendship first, and it does develop into lovers eventually. And then the other one is going to be Allura and Nyala, and their friendship starts due to a queer awakening. So one character isn't aware of their preferences when the story starts, and it starts as a friendship, and then it's like, hold on, I think I like this person more than just as a friend. And I think these feelings actually might be, you know, sort of romantic, and it's about exploring how to navigate that shift from I thought we were just friends, but actually I like you more than that.
Ooh.
You know, I don't know who said it, but like, what is the trope where it's like, oh no, we're not friends. It's like the lust first and then friends later. It's like lovers to friends. Is that a thing? Is that the reverse of this trope? They're lust first. It's like lust to friends. Like not necessarily love. And it's like, we're not in love. We're not even friends. But then they are friends.
You know the types of books I read, okay?
Yep.
I think Fated Mates is another way that the lovers to friends side kicks in, because it's like we've got this almost magical or forced attraction towards each other, and that often leads to, that can lead to spicy times. But then through, forced proximity or eventually spending more time together and being in each other's company, in each other's presence, it can then develop into like a really beautiful friendship secondary to the attraction. So I guess, yeah, lovers to friends? Maybe we should do a whole nother segment on that.
I don't know. I love platonic soulmates is what I love.
Yeah.
I unfortunately do love the fated mates thing. I think because I'm Demi, it sometimes sounds a little bit easier in a way to just have it decided for me, and then I can just roll with it and not have to stress about all the things that I stress about as a Demi person. But I think you're exactly right. I think that's the way to cheat the system, to skip the friendship. I can think of a few books that I shan't recommend here that I read in another life that's very much the case. Is even the characters sometimes in books with that trope is like the couples that meet that aren't fated mates, despite trying to become friends and fall in love naturally, they just can't. It won't work because the fated mates part is the part. So, no, I think you're exactly right, Luna.
Okay, so we've talked about examples in our own work. Noah, if anyone wants to check your books out, where can they find you?
You can find me on all the social medias and my website, neshamapublishing.com. Yeah.
And Tessa?
You can find me on Instagram at tess.carletta or at tesscarletta.com.
And for me, I'm on most socials as Luna Day Writer, and my website also under Luna Day.
And if you're interested in finding more about this podcast or tagging along with us on our adventures, we're on Instagram at Right Here, Right Queer Podcast. The first right is with an R, the second right is with a W.
Thank you for that, Tess. And thank you for joining us, listeners. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.